Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday. I know you're all just coming in from your weekends. It's still, frankly, it's still frankly surreal and kind of a miracle to me, even after these years, that we can do this, that we can get together across the country, people from all over the place, sharing a sense of space and sharing a conversation and a witnessing of a conversation. So as you're coming in, thank you, thank you, thank you for spending this time with us. Um, yeah, I'm really encouraged by that personally. So thank you. And I know Maury is too. We're just really, really, really glad to see you all here. We invite you to tell us where you are, where you're all beaming in from. In the chat is now open. Go ahead and let us know who you are, where you're from. Give us your name and your state. Yeah, let's check it. Let's check in that way on the chat. I'm actually going to write, let's see. There's everybody coming in. Oh, here they are. New
Somebody,
Mexico, New
somebody from New
Hampshire.
Mexico. Yes.
Yeah, I saw that. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Dallas. I wish we had a way to put pins on a map. Do we get all
I
50
know.
states? I see Washington, North Carolina. Oh my
Salt
goodness,
Lake,
Utah.
Louisiana, Massachusetts.
That's right. They're coming so fast, Mari. I'm having a little bit of a hard time even
I
reading them.
know. I know.
Maryland, New York, Eastern Washington, Massachusetts.
Missouri,
Wel-
Santa Fe.
Welcome, Seattle. I'm with you too. Montgomery, Texas, Williamsburg, Virginia, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Colorado, Goshen, Indiana, or is it Goshen? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Um, it's just so wonderful. It's so wonderful to see you and to be here. And really want to reach out to each and every one of you and say that we're not all some kind of invisible, audience. I know that we're not all looking each other in the eye, but we do share a presence here today. Um, and I know that we share a sense of mission, a sense of purpose. And whether it's curiosity or hope that brings you here, whether it's looking for um, something that gives you a sense of an uncertain future, certainly feels that way to a lot of folks. Yeah, it already is a step that you are here with us. All right, let's see. Mary Beth, should we another minute maybe before we get started? What do you think?
Um, yeah, maybe another 30 seconds here.
Another 30 seconds. Okay. So please, if you're just joining us, hello, welcome. I'm Monica. Mari is here. Mary Beth is here. We're all here from all over the country. If you look to your chat, you'll see all the corners of this amazing country where people are beaming in from. Please share where you are from. Um, Going once, going twice. We're gonna be wrapping this up in a bit. Hello from Long Beach, California. It's probably pretty warm there. And Roseville, Minnesota, and Campbell, California, Roanoke, Virginia, all over the place. Arkansas, Ohio, look at that. All right. Well, again, welcome. Welcome, everyone, to this conversation. We are going to be speaking with Maury Giles, the new CEO of Braver Angels. He has just waved hello. Hello, Maury. And before we get to the main event tonight, I'm going to turn things to the illustrious and wonderful Mary Beth Stivens from our event coordination team to share some housekeeping notes about tonight's event and some of what's coming up so that you're all aware. And then we'll get right into it. So, Mary Beth, take it away.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Mary Beth Stivens, and we're delighted to have you with us today. So just a few quick logistics before we dive in. The Zoom chat is open right now for you to share your location. While Mari and Monica are speaking, we're going to keep the chat closed to help everyone stay focused. And then at the end, we're going to reopen it again and invite you to share a takeaway. There will be time for question and answers. We may not be able to get to every question, but we'll do our best. Everybody will be muted during the program except for Monica and Mari. During the Q&A, if you raise your hand and are called on, you'll receive a prompt to unmute and share your question. Today's event is being recorded and we will send the link afterwards. At the close of the event, the chat will be reopened and you'll be invited to share a takeaway, and also please complete a short feedback form. We'd be very grateful for your reflections. So we're glad you're here. And with that, let's get started.
All right. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much, Mary
Monica.
Beth.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to the brilliant team at Braver Angels for making this possible, running everything on the back end. Braver Angels is a group effort, the likes of which I don't know that I've ever seen, as strong as this is. And we're so glad and grateful that you're here with us. I know that we are meeting up with you all today. Some of you have been part of the Braver Angels community for some time. Welcome. This is quite the moment. There's been an acceleration of lots of things. We'll get to that. I also want to extend a welcome to those of you who are new, for whom this is the first time you've engaged with anything Braver Angels does. We are so happy to have you here. And new and old, this is something we all need to come together around. So again, just our gratitude for your being here with us. So I'm joined by Maury Giles, the new CEO of Braver Angels. Maury, you've been in the job all of how many weeks?
I think 8 weeks going on 9.
8 weeks going on 9, and they have been eventful, to say the least. So, Maury, today we're going to talk about lots of things. We want to get to know you. We want to get to know how you view, your leadership style and the vision you bring, kind of locking into what Braver Angels is, which is this movement with lots of people, lots of moving parts, all trying to kind of face enough of the same direction that we can make the enormous impact that I think lots of folks around the country know we deserve. A braver way to do our politics, a braver way to come together and make it real. But I want to zoom in on today. How are you after what happened today? Take us back to this morning. You had a pretty hard moment. Can you tell us what that
Yeah,
moment was and walk us through what got you there?
I appreciate that. And the emotions have been very, very intense throughout these last few weeks. But today, quite frankly, and thank you so much for everyone being here. I saw all the different cities represented from across the country, and it just hits me in my heart because so passionate about this. I know each of you are. But honestly, Monica, today has been really, really rough because some very intense continued acceleration of violence in ways that, just a few weeks ago here in Utah, just down the road, a few months earlier over Minnesota and others. But then I happen to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We lost our prophet leader last night. He died at the age of 101, but that was more of a celebration of a long-lived life, and he was a champion for peacemaking. In fact, just 3 weeks ago, if you look at what he said on Time magazine, he asked all of us across the world, but particularly in the United States, to look at each other as human, to treat each other better, to really espouse what I would say are the Braver Angels way. And then we woke up this morning, and my wife says, "Wait a minute, there's some news of a church, an LDS church, and that's a nickname for Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a congregation in Michigan, where there's been a shooting and a fire, and we're trying to decipher if it's real or not, right?" And quickly looking at that, and then hearing from the law enforcement, and just imagining these people in this church. Now, I can relate because our church is fairly consistent across the world, and our chapels look a lot the same. And these people, 150, 200 of them, were gathered for what we call sacrament meeting. And it's there with your family, your kids, your mom, and apparently this gentleman came in, this man came in. A lot of details will come out later, but did something to create a fire, an explosion, and then opened up with automatic rifle. And thinking about those families and those kids and the people running to the first people that ran out were running out because they thought someone had had an accident. They were trying to help them. And then they were met with gunfire. And I think it's just the intensity of this work that made me really have a lot of emotions hit
Yeah.
for about 20, 30 minutes of just tears. And
Yeah.
yet at the same time, tears of resolve
Mm.
of why this is so important, what we're doing. And I don't, I'm
Yeah.
trying not to get too emotional right now on this,
Mm.
but it's real.
Yeah.
And each one of us have experienced in our own lives different things. And when this is an attack on all of us as humans, all of us as Americans, and the rhetoric and the loneliness, the disconnection that people have and the isolation, it just hit real hard today.
Yeah. And this has been, it's just wild to think about the last 4 weeks in
Yeah.
particular. There's
Yeah.
been an acceleration in many ways. I know that you having just started this, you've been pulled into collaborations with other bridge building organizations, with some politicians who are looking to make things better. There's been this acceleration, as we've mentioned a couple times already. So tell us a bit about, take the thread further back, the Charlie Kirk assassination, but also violence against folks on the left and the right. There has been a string of this, and the concern around political violence just seems to, I keep seeing this, have reached sort of a fever pitch. It's reached quite a height. So take us into that as well for yourself. What's been your path through those weeks? Let us in a bit.
Yeah. Well, the first that hit really hard to me is when I had already, it was right about the time that I had accepted the job, and we had the assassination in Minnesota. And I can't remember the timing exactly, but um, I don't think the announcement had been made.
Yeah.
And, but I remember talking with Bill, talking with Barbara, talking with those in Minnesota, and
And these
just,
are leaders in Braver Angels who are pretty
yeah,
exemplary.
yeah, Bill Doherty and Barbara Thomas,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to get myself oriented toward, transitioning out of my career, my job, and making this change, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like the level of because you go back to the Trump attempted Josh Shapiro. I mean, several of these things starting to happen, but then when that happened, it was like, oh my gosh, they're in their home, elected officials, just
Yeah.
someone coming
Yeah.
clearly motivated off of this hatred, right? Man, and off of the narrative playing into it. And I was personally at that time just trying to get ready for this change. And once I came on board, I actually started in July. I went out even before I started officially in the job and started working with a number of folks and tried to just get myself oriented ready. Um, but as you know, we had a lot that we're trying to do right from the beginning of saying, okay, what does our next chapter look like? So my orientation was from day one is I've been a volunteer for 5 years, right? And I had a lot of passion about what we do, and I wanted to hit the ground running and say, hey, look, if I'm going to leave a 30-year career and go all in on this,
Mm.
because I know this is where I need to be as a human being, as an American, as a father and a husband, I want to make sure that I give it everything. And so we were moving quick on trying to say, okay, let's define what the core story is. And we can come back and talk about that funny
Mm-hmm.
story. My 9-year-old niece that got me focused on realizing that problem. But a lot of things like the story, our organization, what does the next chapter look like? And I feel like we're making progress. We talked to 509 different
Mm-hmm.
volunteers and members from across the country in these 7 sessions. And I'm like, I'm learning, I'm feeling, and boy, I asked people to write me emails, and boy, y'all wrote me lots of emails, and you still write me emails, and I love it. And if I haven't got back to you yet, I promise I will. And then all of a sudden, we're getting this plan to get out in Washington, D.C., and we're going to launch citizen-led solutions. We've got a whole lot organized. And all of a sudden, we're literally on a Wednesday afternoon with about 5 or 6 of us from Braver Angels. We're on this call with a partner that's helping us develop some tools. And one of the partners on the call says, there's been a shooting at Utah Valley University at
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Kirk.
And you're in Utah, by
And
the
I'm
way.
in Utah.
Right.
That's 25 miles down the road.
Right.
My wife she went back to school a few years back and got a degree there. 4 of our kids have gone to school there. Every year we have our high school graduations there. It's a big part of the community and where we live. And I'm sitting there trying to pay attention to the work that we're doing on this call. And then I finally just tell the team, I need to bounce and I'll hook back. And the team kept going. And to discover what had happened and that it was Charlie Kirk. And then there was this hope like, okay, but he was just shot, like nobody died. And it was like, no, he's dead. And thankfully, I didn't have to see the video images that so many
Yeah.
people did, you know. But from that moment, there was there was the hopeful thing that to me I just want to share that was powerful is,
Yeah.
and this kind of goes to my feeling about why I know I'm in the right place, right time for myself in terms of what I need to be doing. Because over the last 5 years, I developed relationships with about 25 different people involved in this work, seven of whom are here in Utah. And they happen to be associated with large national organizations. Within an hour of that, one of them reached out. We got on a call. We got all of us together and started saying, okay, what are we going to do? How do we work together here in Utah first? And then we started working on how do we work together across the nation. And as you know, within 4 hours of that shooting, we had a group of us, about 15, 20 of us on a call. Okay, what do we do? And quickly get into action. Everybody jumped in and,
Hmm.
okay, let's respond. Let's move forward. And some really important questions were asked, like, why this response now, but not when we had the assassination in Minnesota? And we talked about those things. And I've heard from many members asking the same question, but there was a moment where you could see that this was triggering something in the country that was going to be a national discussion,
Yeah.
and that was intense. And
Absolutely.
so to be able to move that quickly and have a thing happen on Friday here in Utah, release information. We had seven organizations. It wasn't branded as any organization. It was just turned toward .us with all of our organizations together. But we had made it easy for people to find, here's the resources you can get, and then here's all the events. And one of the things that just touched my heart is that when you go to that site, most of those things are Braver Angels things that are happening
Hmm.
with all of you doing this. And then within that Sunday, so just 2 days later, to get 27 or so plus organizations and 1,500 people and talk about what just happened. What does it mean? Where do we go?
Hmm.
Um, and that's just the start because now we're regrouping with those organizations and continue
Right.
to move forward. But it just all of a sudden moving in fast motion of like what's happening. But the timing was perfect where we were in Washington, D.C., a lot of us in the leadership, and we had stuff going on there.
Mhm.
So we were able to be front and center and get that message out to
Yeah.
different groups.
And it's action not just among the bridge building organizations and these folks who are, trying to prime ourselves to be in these places where healing might be needed, but also there was a petition, right? With politicians writ large and action taken on that level. Can you tell us about a couple of those?
Yeah, that was one of the most amazing things. I got to tell you the inside story of what happened with that. So
Yeah.
the groups that we gathered in Utah, we said, look, after we got through that weekend, those organizations, we said, look, let's do something to get elected officials. Then Elizabeth Dahl, who runs Braver Politics, she reached out and said, listen, let's get some language and let's get Utah, let's get people to sign this. Let's start going to elected officials to say, not just condemning violence, because that should be easy enough, but to actually commit to living the Braver Angels way principles of how they communicate.
Mhm.
And so Elizabeth worked quickly, got some language put together. We worked with the organizations to try to get language just right. Because one thing that I have seen more than anything, and it makes sense with the career I've had, is words matter very much on these topics right now, especially when emotions are so high and especially when we experience
Oh,
things so
yeah.
differently, you know? And so we got that language together, and our focus was let's start working with Utah legislators to get them to sign it.
Hmm.
So we started moving and getting that together, and we were making some headway. But be full transparency, we still haven't been able to get that done here in Utah to get them to all sign it. There's been some discussions, and they're talking about doing a resolution. But here's what happened on Thursday of that week. On Thursday of that week, we had already scheduled a meeting with the Problem Solvers Caucus with Representative Tom Suozzi, a Democrat from New York.
And by the way, we should define the Problem Solvers Caucus to folks. Can you do that real quick?
Yeah, Problem Solvers Caucus, a group of congressional leaders elected from across the country
Mhm.
who are Republican and Democrat, and they agree to be a part of caucus. And in a legislative body like Congress, a caucus means a group of people that have some common interest or some common goal that they're going to work together toward. And the Problem Solvers Caucus is to say, we're going to come together, lean into conflict, and deal with the hard issues and try to find bipartisan common ground to get creative solutions. So they have new leadership. They have Tom Suozzi in New York, who's a Democrat, and Brian Fitzpatrick in Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
who's a Republican. And I got to tell you, I love those guys because I've been able to interact with them 3 or 4 times now, and they agreed to have a meeting because we're going to be in DC. And one of the things we've been talking with all of our folks at Braver Angels that anytime any of us that are on staff or national volunteers, anytime we go to any city for one thing, we got to do 10 other things while we're there. Just
Mm-hmm.
we got to see people, got to be with people. And so we set up this meeting with Problem Solvers Caucus with Brian and with Tom. And they walk in, and it's Barbara Thomas, our chief operating officer, and Jesse Manisto, who runs our debates program, were with me. And Tom Swazi walks in and says, "All right, Maury, what do you got for us? What are we going to talk about?" And he sits down, and we were there to talk about the immigration, the Citizens Commission on Immigration and a few other things. But right before the meeting, I was talking with Jesse and Barbara, and I said, "Wait a minute, we're about to meet with
Mm.
the leaders of the Problem Solvers Caucus. Yes, we've been doing this thing for the folks in Utah as state legislators. Let's give this to them and ask them to sign it." And
Mm.
so I said, Tom, I'm going to shift topics here real quick. We've been working with the American public to try to with healing and giving them guidance and connect them to resources. But we need our elected officials to live this way. You have committed to do that. This piece of paper, we want you to transpose it to national instead of Utah, and we want the two of you to sign it. And then we stop there. Swazi looked at it. What does it say? He grabs it. He looks at it. He starts reading it. He's like, yeah, 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 yeah. He looks over at Fitzpatrick and he goes, Brian, I'll sign this. You'll sign this?
Mm.
And he goes, well, let me read it. Then he said, well, what? Then knowing Swazi now, he moves fast. If you think I move fast, he moves a lot faster than me.
We're going to talk about that because you do move fast.
He says, Maury, what are we going to do with this if we sign it? And I said, listen, because I knew that in 30 minutes from the time we were meeting with them, but I wasn't going to be able to be there because I had to get to a flight, that they were going to be meeting on the steps of the Capitol. And I said, Tom, take this with you. Have all of your members sign it today. And he turns over to his staff, to Gabe, and poor Gabe. He's like, Gabe, get this. Maury, you have the digital version of this? Gabe, get it on our letterhead. Let's go. And within 5 minutes, they had it. He had a few edits that he wanted to make, very small, put it on their letterhead, and then had a checklist of every member of the Problem Solvers Caucus, printed out copies of it, took it up to there, and then it took them the weekend, but they ended up getting 36 signatures, and they brought it forward and made a statement. And it's, as far as I've been able to see, the only bold step forward at the national level for making that type of a commitment.
Amazing. Right. So we're already talking about some themes that it seems are going to be around as you are in the role you're in, and the movement gets that fuel behind it that we know we need and that we're ready for. As I think about that story, things lined up. People were in the right place, right time. Let's get this done. I want to go back to the heaviness that people are feeling.
Yeah.
And I want to say two things. One, I'll just open up that as someone who's been dedicated to this work on a deeply personal level, where sometimes I have this rage for it that I try to channel in the right places. Sometimes I fail. Sometimes I succeed.
Me too.
I have felt like in this last month, the monster has gotten bigger, but I haven't. I just want to leave you with that note, to address as you will. I don't always feel that way, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm afraid that's what's happening. Now, the other thing I want to do, in response to that was an amazing petition. Those were incredible actions. And I know that there's a lot of organizations and a lot of people taking those steps, and doors are opening and things are happening, right? But when I put myself, especially in the shoes of folks who are not as involved in the movement, and they look around, everything feels so big, Maury. Everything feels so big. And they might be hearing this thinking, okay, that's a petition from the Problem Solvers Caucus, but are we going to move the big thing that needs to be moved? So I think that's one of the overriding themes of this conversation. There's energy. There's a bias for action that I know you bring from your experience in, corporate America where you've just, you've been good on strategy, you're bringing that thinking into Braver Angels. But boy, this is heavy, Maury. This is heavy for all of us. Right, left, center, bridge builders, or not, however you might identify. How do you ever feel that way? The monster is getting bigger and you're not?
100%. 100%. I guess there's a couple of thoughts when you say that, Monica. I felt after the latest assassination, and I think it even amplified today, I feel two things equally, but they come from different places. One is I feel like the work we're trying to do has just become dramatically harder.
Yeah, I hear that.
Um, and and I feel like there are, I'll point to last Sunday, we decided that I was going to write another piece in our newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have noticed it didn't come out till later in the day because it was something that there were so many things happening and changing. And then the services that were happening with Charlie Kirk's memorial. And I felt very strongly that the need last Sunday was to try to do something and thread a needle that I felt was really hard to thread. And that was because I've experienced in my own family, and some of my kids may even be listening to this right now or later. I don't know. And I won't reveal anything that
Mm.
I shouldn't because they're all wonderful humans working things out in their own lives. And my kids are age range 31 to 17, but very divided on these things, very divided in their response to what happened. And what I was trying to do last week is try to choose language that would say, some people are experiencing it this way. Some people are experiencing it this way. How does that make you feel?
Mm.
When you read words, and it doesn't matter, either side read one of those sides with real intensity, and there was a lot of emotion. And I received a lot of emails.
Yeah, because
But
folks on one side had to read how the other side was experiencing it, and because of the consequences of our polarized time,
yeah,
feeling the kinds of slights, attacks, offenses, objections. It's like we all have to figure out how to deal with that.
right. And saying, but Maury, you're not pointing out this, and this,
Yeah.
and equal numbers of emails from both sides of that. But really, so I when I started reading those responses that got forwarded over to me, I was flying back to DC. I've been to DC 4 times this month.
Ay, ay, ay.
Um, um, and it's a long flight from Salt Lake. It's longer coming back, depending on the winds. But on my flight, I had several other things I was trying to get done, and I was like, you know what? I want to respond to these because there's deep emotion here.
Yeah. Can you give us an example? Like what's something that stuck out in your mind as a sharp thing that's still in there with you, that
Well,
is raw as real and you needed to respond to?
yeah. So I'll give one on both. I think there's more than two sides, but I'll give one on both sides.
Sure.
One articulating, you're asking me to do something that leans into someone that wants to remove my existence or
Right.
my way of life and is intense in their attack on that. And it is existential for me.
Yeah.
How do I do that? Why should I do that? Now, on the other hand, from a young man on the conservative side saying, I was so inspired to see open debate and discussion. And now I have to ask myself, why should I even care? Because if I say something, I'm not only at risk of being labeled as this and called these things, but I could lose my life
Mm-hmm.
for stating something of a belief that I have. That's intense when you start to think about that, because what we're asking people to do is to lean into that conflict.
Yeah.
And the reason that I went with that Apollo mission example is I felt like that was such an existential crisis for these astronauts. And
Oh, and we'll need to, can you back up and let folks know what that
oh yeah,
was?
so in the letter I wrote, I was comparing for our newsletter last week. I was comparing the choice we have in the moment of, when the Apollo mission lost the, when they had the explosion on it, and they didn't have time to figure out who was responsible for like the problem. They needed to decide, if we're going to save their lives and get them back, how do we work the problem? And it didn't feel like a perfect metaphor, but it felt close enough with the notion that, how do we work the problem right now?
Yeah, yeah.
And it requires us to actually lean into those emotions, but lean into that conflict with other people that see it and experience it differently than us.
Yeah.
And that's actually the reason. The other thing I was saying, I felt two things, that our problem got significantly more difficult. At the same time, I genuinely feel like our chances of success, if we as American people choose it, have also increased dramatically,
Mm.
because
Hmm.
the stark choice in front of us is being shown in such black and white terms
Yeah,
of,
and how do you see it? Yeah, what is that stark choice?
yeah. So it's a choice of, am I going to go into all outright tribal warfare on behalf of what I believe to be true? Or am I going to choose to lean into conflict and try to see others as human, and play in what we're talking a lot about now is a counterculture movement? Am
Mm.
I going to lean against the
Mm.
dominant narrative? Am
Mm.
I going to do the thing that is not what currently is the norm, because
Yeah.
of all of the incentives that push us into our space?
And because of what you said, you were giving those examples from someone, on the left, someone on the right. Folks are facing a level of existential threat when they approach these questions and these possibilities. And it feels like you're going to undermine something that's holding you up, right? By engaging with the other side or trying to go for unity. It's like I can tell that on the one hand, people are more, they're trying to figure out, okay, what does this look like? It feels like we need it because nobody wants more violence. On the other hand, there's sort of this added resistance because of what people feel as an existential threat. And and you're saying there's still something you can do. There is absolutely something you do. There's a way through. And wait, but I want to hear more about how you see the odds actually getting better. So yeah,
Well,
drill
I
into
think
that.
on one hand, it comes from my belief in the goodness of people, and that the dominant reality, the reality that we're experiencing right now, is we have some massive forces that are in place that propagate a narrative that is not true. And that narrative is labels and behaviors and character. Those labels are associated with behaviors, words, and character. And they're being all sewn up into one, so that if I hear a word, or I see a phrase, or I see a particular behavior of someone, then I immediately know whether they're good or evil.
Mm.
Not even anymore whether they're right or wrong, whether they're good or evil. And the thing that I know, that anyone who has participated in Braver Angels activities, and I'm going to say anyone because I know that we experience it in different ways, and some might have just this much, and some others, and some down here. When you go to and you tell yourself, I'm going to set aside the label for a moment, and that is hard to do. That is really hard to do, especially when there's real life behaviors going on that are reinforcing the caricature of that persona that that label represents. But here's the problem. That then you see your neighbor, or actually, I think it's even harder with your child, or your sibling, or your parents.
Yeah.
And then they say or do something that's in that space. And then it's at this point, the choice is, am I going to reject that label for a moment and see that person as who they are? And then try to connect with them, because the deeper problem is connection.
Yeah. And it's seeing who people really are. I just
Yes.
pulled up statistic that I saw this past week that really blew my mind. And this is a survey of folks' attitudes toward political violence. And it found that Democrats think 45.5% of Republicans support partisan murder, which is 20.7 times larger than what the data show. Similarly, Republicans think 42% of Democrats support partisan murder, which is 25 times larger than reality. This is a problem often referred to as the perception gap. And if you look at immigration, if you look at even freedom of speech recently, we keep seeing these misperceptions about what the other side believes. And there's also been research from folks who are trying to figure out which interventions can strengthen our democratic republic and those pieces of our institutions and our norms that hold us together enough that our discourse is productive and that persuasion works. And they I lost my train of thought. Oh, I'll have to come back to it. But they realized, oh yes, now I remember. The number one most effective intervention is correcting misperceptions. That's the number one most effective intervention, is correcting misperceptions across these divides. So yeah.
Yeah, and
where do you find hope?
And how do we do that, right? And how do we do that? Because that's why so much of where we're getting with our story of the next chapter for Braver Angels is anchored in this idea of reinforcing that we have personal agency to choose to act instead of react.
Right.
And so we have to choose that curiosity if we're going to be open to maybe I have misperceptions.
Right.
Right? It's easy to say, I'm going to go fix the other person's misperceptions. The harder, the more courageous, and the more needed is to say, I'm going to be open to the possibility of living in uncertainty that I might have something wrong, and I'm going to see this person as a human and engage. And that's why if you look at the array of the things that have been built by just the amazing work by all of you, by those that started Braver Angels, one-on-one conversations. You could literally today go on the website and sign up to say, I want to talk to somebody who's opposite me in politics or age or urban, rural, and our team will help set you up. Then you can have a conversation. What does that do? That opens your awareness of like, wow. Then, like you say often, Monica, that the things that we have the least experience with are the most exaggerated in our imagination.
Right, exactly. Our imaginations will fill in the gaps with, who knows if it's true. And we have to kind of go figure out if it's true, if we can, or learn from those who can.
So that simple thing of doing a one-on-one is there. Yeah. Then you start getting into our skills building. Okay, well, now I'm curious. I want to try. And most of our stuff in those skills building is self-reflective. It's like, how am I approaching this, right? Because you can't get to the other side of connecting with someone until you start with you, because you can't control them. And if you don't believe that, then you must not have been a parent.
Right.
You can't control the other.
I love this from Bill Doherty. He has talked. So Bill Doherty is one of the co-founders of Braver Angels. He's a marriage therapist, family therapist, well known, and a lot of Braver Angels programs are architected from his methods. And he likes to say that therapy between, members of a couple really starts to take off when each person looks in the mirror. And Braver Angels methods there's an analogy there, a couple on the brink of divorce, and Democrats and Republicans or whoever it is on these other sides realizing, okay, we're implicated in a dynamic one way or another. Maybe we can't make claims that we're contributing the same way. Well, maybe that's not important to solving it as much as it is that we've all got to pick it up. We've all got to find a way to pick it up.
I keep coming back to the fact that we all have to decide what we're going to do individually.
Right.
And I know it's difficult, but I would say to everyone who's listening to this, I know that you believe and you feel confident in that belief that there is a particular behavior of somebody or some party or some group that is contributing to this at the higher level. And if we could just get them to stop doing that it would change. That could be totally true. It's your truth. The challenge is, how does that get us to breaking down connection and really overcoming the conflict entrepreneurs that are really pushing us to these angles because they make money off, to these corners because they make money off them.
Polarization sells. It does.
Yeah, it does. And the only way it changes, in my experience, is if we say, I can only do what I'm going to do. I've had conversations with friends and family of like, will come in and just start to say, um, no, but listen, I'm going to tell you why this, and this, and this. I'm going to correct everything. But the conversation gets framed as I'm on the side of good. This is the side of evil. Now, if you choose to agree with me, then we're good. But if not, then you're evil.
Yeah.
Where does the conversation go at that point, right? And so leaning into that, but I also want to say that I get that the intensity of these things, sometimes you can't
Oh,
go
yeah.
there because you're just not able.
Yeah.
But there's two things that you can do prior to all that. One is gratitude. Looking at your life and trying to say, okay, if I can't go talk to somebody because I'm feeling that intensity and I'm feeling that threat, then build up the light within yourself to be able to have greater confidence and comfort and safety in your own mind and heart. Gratitude journals or looking at your life, all the things that are good. Second, go serve someone. Forget about the conversation. If you can't have the conversation, go do simple acts of service. You look at those kinds of things are simple but powerful of getting you into the frame of mind that you can actually then approach something that's hard and takes courage and requires you to lean into something that's difficult on a very deep level. And ultimately it comes to and I feel for my own faith and belief on a Sunday, I feel it's even more powerful to make this point that hate never gets rid of hate.
Yeah.
Darkness never gets rid of darkness. But love removes hate, and light removes darkness. But the very quick thing that I want to say, because I know I've heard people immediately come back that
Yeah.
you're talking kumbaya, just be nice and hold hands in love. No, I am not. I'm talking about walking into
Yeah.
what the stark choice we have right now and saying, I choose courageous citizenship. I choose that I cannot stand what you are saying, but I want to understand it. I might not be able to stand it, but I want to understand it.
I want to jump into that. I agree. It can sound so kumbaya. It can sound so,
Yeah.
woo woo, all this like love, blah. What is that? You call it light. People call it what they'll call it. But I really believe that anger, speaking fully, freely, and without fear, channeling your anger in places that can handle it, right? Doing whatever it is that you need to do to kind of reflect on, okay, where can I put my force and my energy? I know this to be really important, and I need other folks to hear me.
Yeah.
But I understand that people can only hear when they're heard. I understand that in times of division, right? So there's skills I can pick up. There's things I can practice. This work is not about abandoning your convictions, which I hear all the
No,
time. This work is not about coming to the middle. Oh my
no,
gosh, who would
we
want
have
to do
so
that?
many things. We have
It's
so
not
many things,
it.
Monica, that make these work. These tools work that have been developed.
Yeah.
Like they're purposely designed to do each of those things.
Right. And it's difficult to know where to apply it. You can feel very alone in that, or you can feel pressured in a really unfair way. Like, what are they asking me to go talk to the devil? I can't do that. That will hurt me. Okay. Okay, you know that. No one else knows that. But there might be steps you can take. There might be skills you can build. But one way or another, can we look at what's available? So, Mari, I want to move us to before the acceleration of this month. Uh, you joined Braver Angels and got right to work, coming up with a plan. Not by yourself, because that's not the
No,
way Braver Angels works.
not at
We
all.
are we are a constellation, right? We're
Yeah.
we're a pretty wide net of extraordinarily passionate people all across. I mean, the volunteer network at Braver Angels, I alluded to this before. It's wild to me how absolutely powerful we are and can be in the capacity that we have, which is why again we're so happy that those of you who have joined, like, trust me, there's a home for you here. There is. So walk us through, um, in the context of everything we've just talked about, the fear, the heightened difficulty level that we are at, and what you now know, having been through those first 4 weeks of your tenure, um, doing listening tours, talking to hundreds of Braver Angels members, uh, gathering all of this. We've got a plan. We've
We
actually
do.
got a plan.
We do.
I mean, the audacity of us to have a plan,
Have a
but we
plan.
do. So uh, tell us about the
Yes,
plan, Maury.
I love it. So, and Monica, what I love is that you talk about timing and sequencing. I just feel like the way things are coming together, I believe that we're moving in a place to be able to meet the moment. And it's been so energizing. I've been a roller coaster on the emotions on things, and some days asking myself, "What do we know what we're doing?" And then I was, "Yes, we got it. Let's go." And a group, there's been so many people have been involved. I think I mentioned the 510, 509 people to be precise in those sessions, and then other meetings in Minnesota and DC, and just being with people and the energy there. And then the offsite we had with the leadership team. I think I've actually had conversations either through those sessions or emails or one-on-one with over 1,000 volunteers now, and it just it fuels my energy. It wears me out, but then I sleep and get some energy back and keep going. But the path I believe that I'm so excited about that we're moving into this plan is really anchored around this phrase that you've heard me say a few times of courageous citizenship. Those words were really intentional. As you know, part of the process, we gathered and we said, let's dissect the problem and say, what's really going on in society and what's our role in it? And we needed to figure out a better way and a quicker way to be able to say what it is we do and have a clear sense of where we're going on the next chapter. That's that funny story I was mentioning earlier when I accepted
Yeah.
the job and I was at a family reunion over the summer. And my 9-year-old niece came up to me and said, Uncle Maury, what are you going to be doing with like Brave or something or Angels? And then 30 minutes later, she pulled on my jacket and said, Uncle Maury, are you still answering my question? And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
In the mouths of babes, right? It was very clear. We got to get to a simple story of where we're headed and what's next. And the things I think that are most important about this plan that really get me energized, not because it's going to be easy, but because there's greater clarity. And I think we can apply a greater planned and intentional urgency with dignity when we're clear what we're doing. And that courageous citizenship really operates on three levels. The first one is a pillar around personal agency. The idea that I mentioned earlier that we as Brave Rangers are trying to inspire people to recognize, no, you do have control.
Yeah.
You do have control. You have control over you, and that's the most important thing you have control over. And the more of us that start exercising that control, the quicker we can get to the other side of this.
I can vouch it's the antidote for hopelessness. Continue.
It's so powerful. And so much what we do operates that way. But then the second pillar is what you heard us talk about in DC. I think it was last week, although it might have been the week before. I'm trying to remember. Anyhow,
It's all
is
blood.
taking action. The idea that dialogue is great when you learn that I can control me and I can start to have dialogue. Then that second pillar is about community and relationships. It's locally connecting with other people who are different than you, have different perspectives, and realizing at the hyper local level that you can not only talk to each other through our workshops and common ground and red, blue, what have you, but you can actually take on common needs and find solutions and strengthen the fabric of society right in your neighborhood, right in your community. And so that's that second pillar. And our citizen-led solutions that we announced at the National Conference on Citizenship, which got a huge response and so many people reaching out and wanting to be a part of it. It's about action, taking that dialogue into action and recognizing we're in a very different moment in 2025 than we were in 2016.
Yeah. And I want to double click on that real quick because there has been that kind of critique of the bridge building space. Like, oh, okay, we're building the skills, but hang on, some of us don't just disagree. We want to actually do something. We
Yes.
want to feel powerful in our own communities. So there is this focus on local. And it's one of the things I've always loved about Braver Angels is, national can kind of suck all the energy, right? But you get lost in it. It's so diluted. Like, where's your voice? What do you actually do? But at
Yeah.
local, you can get to know your neighbors, and they're not as scary as a commenter on the internet that you will never meet
Yeah.
sometimes. And there's those things you can do. So citizen-led solutions, it is like I encourage everyone, look it up, check
Look
it
it
out.
up. Go to the website. We've already got videos of case studies that they've been applying this, and we understand that not everyone's going to be engaged in a way that they're going to, be able to, or stage of life, or just interest or personality. But I look at it as I grew up as a Boy Scout, right? I participated in Boy Scouts. My dad was my scoutmaster when I was young, and I was a scoutmaster when I was older. if you look in Boy Scouts, when people came and participated in the hyperlocal level, some of the kids that came to Scouts just wanted to play the games that we did on the weekdays. Some wanted to go on campouts. Some did merit badges. Some wanted to rank advance to Eagle. Those are all things that are critical about a program meeting the needs of people. So what we're trying to do on that hyper local is we're actually, I'll get to the third pillar, but I want to emphasize a point. The way to make this real, there's a team that's already working on saying, how do we rethink our local alliances? Rethink of them as kind of like that scout troop, where you think of Rotary, you think of 4-H, there's many organizations you can look at, but something that's hyper local, that has people who have been trained on understanding the core elements of what the Braver Angels way is, and they've got a critical mass of people who want to either learn and engage, like come and just talk, or they want to develop skills like merit badges, or they want to do rank advancement and become volunteers and train, or they want to go do service, or they want to take on projects like their Eagle project, their Alliance project with the citizen-led solutions. Now, to make that work, I know a lot of us listening to this, because I've talked with a lot of you. It's like, Maury, I don't know how I can give anymore. But here's what we're trying to do is we're trying to shift it to where this is such a powerful program and tools that we have. But the biggest challenge that I've seen that we have, one of them, is we haven't yet structured it in a simplified way that makes it easy when you first learn about this and you want to get involved to say, hey, and imagine this, hey, you just joined. Here's one path, here's two paths, here's the third path. Which would you like to do? And then when you go there, you can get information. And then your local alliance has a toolkit with all the best practices, the resources that are there. And we got to figure out how to do that so that we can give it and have freedom within a framework, that constellation mindset of like, yes, let local alliances go and do, but equip them so it's easier. There's not so much friction involved. We're excellent at organizing events and doing all the stuff that's gotten us to this point. We've got to become excellent at equipping people to then take off and soar to do things within that framework.
Right. Which reminds me of something you and I were talking about earlier, and we mentioned in this conversation already. You do have a lot of energy. We've all seen it. It's woof. And a lot of us are with you where we have that energy and we're ready to give it our all. But there's a lot of folks who are wondering, wait a minute, maybe that's not me. I've got this I can give, I've got that, but I don't know if I can find a home here. I need training. What kind of training? I'm probably not qualified, or I can only give this or that much. And so I think there might be a concern, like, how do we keep up, right? If this momentum, if this movement is what I'm hearing it can be, and I'm even talking fast, trying to keep up with the supposed energy of this movement. But how do you think about that? Because I know you and I have talked about, like, it wouldn't be sustainable if everybody had to run a million miles an hour all the time. Can't. So how do you think about that? What do we do to make sure it's all wide open?
Absolutely. I think that my mind, I'm a man of faith. Everyone has different things that your anchor. Some people it may be faith. Some people it may be faith in religion. Some people may be faith in or a belief in a system, or just your ideology, or just your sense of the purpose of life. For me, there's this one scripture that says it's not requisite that you run faster than you have strength, and see that these things are done in wisdom and order. And I think what that means is, what's that thing that we all have control over? It's us, our choice. And our choice to act instead of react. By acting, it means, what can I do? What's my stage of life? What's my focus and energy level? And what do I have the capacity to do within my relationships, and what matters most? And we have to meet people where they are and make it easier that people can engage at whatever level they can. Now, a lot of this about me and energy, I have a personality that look, I feel called to this work.
Yes.
I was not, if you would have asked me 6 months ago what I'd be doing on September 28th, on Sunday evening of 2025, I would have never guessed that I would be sitting here having this conversation with you in this role. But at the same time, I now can't imagine doing anything else. And it feels so right. And what I have been feeling when I first came in is, I'm trying to push us and those in the staff. And so it's pushing together, like the tush push in football. Like, we're all pushing together, right?
The tush push.
You know
Okay,
the tush
sorry,
push, Monica?
I now do. That is a new
You
term
got
to
it.
me.
Philadelphia Eagles, tush push. It's a thing, and they push across, and they all work together. Sorry, I officiate high
Maury
school
coaches
football.
football. Yeah, exactly. You should
I
tell folks
officiate
you
high
do.
school football. By the way, ironically, it's illegal in high school football. But you can do it in college and you can do it in the pros.
We now know.
They all get together and push. And so we're pushing together, but the current, like hit the ground running, isn't to be able to be at that pace all the time. It's to accelerate our figuring out together what's the optimal path to make it so all of these amazing people who are here with us today and that'll watch it and later and join this, so that they can have a more clear, simple, actionable way to meet them where they are to engage. And it's clear that we've been a powerful organization with a vision of founders that's amazing. I will be very blunt. It's equally clear that we have not structured ourselves as an organization that can scale.
Mhm.
And the moment requires scale.
Yeah.
And scale doesn't mean that you individually have to take your 40 hours and make them into 120.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is,
Or even your 10 hours or
or even your
5
10,
or
exactly.
minutes,
Yeah,
right?
your 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It means that you know what you can do and you lean into it and do it and you feel supported, recognized, and treated with dignity in the process.
Yeah.
So I plan on doing that when I was years, like probably 10, actually, yeah, it was 11 years ago now. One of my son got me involved in running marathons. Now, if you've ever seen me in person, or if you've seen that funny picture of me as a referee going like that on that article that came out last week, I'm not a runner's body type. I'm a middle linebacker, sort of. I look like a rhinoceros when I'm running in a marathon. But here's the deal about running marathons. I've run four now, but I've run probably 25 half marathons. I love running half marathons now. Why? Because they're not marathons. That's why, that's why I love them. But here's the thing about running a marathon. The adrenaline is there in the first little bit when you first take off, right? And you always run your pace a little bit faster at the beginning. And the really seasoned runners begin to realize and recognize that and go together. But I came into this running fast, but I knew that. And I know that I've got to get myself to a pace. And believe me, the way I run a marathon, I once I get into my cadence of my speed, I know for those 26.2, I will not stop at the water stations because I know if I stop this body and these 230 pounds, I will not, it'll take a while to get it going again. And so hitting that cadence and moving is really powerful. But the other thing about that I have found in running marathons, and the reason I find it so powerful, and quite frankly, when I run half marathons now, I feel this way, I crave it. It's far more mental than it is physical. And I believe the work that we're doing here is very similar to that. It's the mental acuity to be able to stay focused and say, why am I doing this? And being okay with the fact that there are going to be some nights like I have had, and I'll be honest, the night before you remember our offsite,
Yeah.
and we
Oh,
were going
yeah.
to be meeting on Sunday morning. And here I am with what, 20 of these, 20 and three or four on the Zoom and 20 in person, who only a few of you I've met in person beforehand. And we'd been working 3 days together. And everyone was saying, Maury, this was really cool. I got a lot done, but what happens next? And I went into my room that night and I was confident in the process because I've done it many times with other organizations. But I looked in the mirror and I said, because I remember saying to a few people, trust the process, we're going to get there. And then I went into my room and I looked at the mirror in the mirror and I said, Mari, are we going to get there? And for me, and this is just for me, because I love what you said before, like find your thing. If it's meditation, if it's going for a walk, if
Yeah.
it's service, if it's a gratitude journal. For me, it was getting down on my knees and meditating and reflecting and getting up early in the morning because for whatever reason, I don't know why, but from the age of 45 on, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, no matter where I'm at. And here's what's really strange. It travels time zones with me, folks. I do not understand why. If there's any doctor amongst us that can explain that to me, I would love to understand why. I don't need an alarm. I wake up at that time every day, no matter what, and it's perfect to the time zone. But that morning, I got on my knees again of just trying to think, okay, what is this? We've been working, as you know, we've been working together and trying, all of us, to get to it. And then the pathway of, at that time, we were saying courageous connection. And we came in and we had that meeting and we talked about it and revealed it. And the feeling was so strong, the energy of that feeling and that emotion. And so that's the mental reality that we in doing this work that is required, that's similar to running a marathon. It's there are going to be times when you're at mile 19 and you're like, ain't no way, no how I can get to mile 25. I am going to die.
Mhm.
But then you remind yourself, no, I've been here before. I know that I can keep going. I'm not going to sprint, but I'm not going to stop.
Yeah.
And I believe at this moment in time on this work, we have got to lean into it and keep going.
Yeah. So we are going to move to questions. We want to try to get as many of your voices in as possible. So Maury, I believe, because I've been tracking, that we didn't mention the third pillar, but instead of asking you to talk about it, I'm going to ask you to see if it comes out during the Q&A.
I was just about to
Yeah,
ask you the same
it's
thing.
okay, but
I
yeah,
got it
we
right
really
here.
want to
Yep.
get your voices in here. And for those of you who are already Braver Angels volunteers, keep in mind Maury was one for years. Like he knows what you've been going through and you probably want to ask. And for those of you who are new, no questions off the table. Like please, come up, we're here for it. So I'll turn it back to Mary Beth to take us through Q&A.
All right, we've already got two hands up. And so first it will be Andrew Gaynor, and then it will be Paul Norris on deck after him. And you'll receive a prompt asking you to unmute. So Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I just want to say thanks to Monica and Maury and Brave Angels for doing this. So yeah, I've been volunteering with Brave Angels for a while and done sort of writing and research on polarization. And I understand it's very complicated. There's no one simple answer, but I kind of wanted to put something out there, maybe as a little bit of a challenge. I should also say I'm here in DC, so that's part of it. But so what I heard from you, part of it is sort of connections among people, sort of a grassroots strategy. But then I also wonder what you think about the idea that, this is going to take some confrontation with power, and that,
Third pillar.
okay.
Look at
First
that.
question.
It's like
First
he's a
question.
plan. Perfect. Go ahead and wrap up your question quickly, and then we'll go with that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and so I'd love to hear more about that, and that there is. I mean, I would just say there's concentrated money and power on both sides that kind of perpetuate this. So I would just love to know what your strategy is for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually a perfect question for the two things that I wanted to say about that third pillar. So remember, first is personally, I can choose to act versus react. Second is community and relationships at the local level. I can do something with other people that are different than me and we can make a difference. Third one is at the national level, we have to be able to, as Braver Angels, be able to lead out and mentor how to hold our elected officials accountable and to drive a shared national interest that's worthy of defending. So how are we doing that? We already told you one story. I think it was a pretty bold move for us, the three of us, to go to those congressional leaders and say, sign this. That's not going to solve anything, but that's a small step and it's a good one. We did trustworthy elections. We did all that work where we around the country gathers wrote an amazing report, the team that's there. We have to be brave enough to use that. We have to go forward. We're not an advocacy group for particular solutions, but we have to be an advocate for the American system, the founding principles of the Constitution and the way this country was designed. And what I believe the inspired principles that really call for rigorous debate and call for governance and have Congress actually play the preeminent role that it's supposed to play, that it's not playing right now. And so we as an organization can do that by taking on issues the Braver Angels way. We're doing that right now in the Citizens Commission on Immigration. What are we doing with that? We have a grass tops version where I was just there in DC this last week with David Lapp, David Blankenhorn, and the team, and Peter Scarry, and that pulled together the whole team of experts on opposite ends, well, all different sides at the national level on the issue of immigration. We're going around the country and we're having common ground workshops. We're working with the Problem Solvers Caucus and we're going into their districts, doing common ground workshops, and then having the congressmen or congresswomen come back and have a briefing with the same citizens and constituents on that issue.
And by the way, the Common Ground Workshop, I just want to quickly jump in and say, this is a format where folks from the left and the right on an issue figure out what they actually agree on across the divide. which
Yeah.
becomes extraordinary foundation to policy solutions that could move the needle. They may not solve the issue for all time, but hey, we're making progress. So yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. And then we package that up and we share that information to our elected officials to say, hey, this is the common ground where we have unanimous agreement on opposite sides of the aisle on this issue. The only thing that I am thinking about and wanting to push us to consider is we need more than one issue at a time.
Mm,
And we can't take 2 or 3 years to get through an issue.
mm,
The
mm.
moment requires us to now, nobody freak out when I say that. I'm not trying to say we will find people that can step up and want to do that because they have time, but we have a model that works there.
Yeah.
The second part of that third pillar is we have got to not go at this alone. And what I mean by that is we are already creating more formal relationships with other organizations that are in different, what I say, swim lanes, right? So why do I say this? I Before I joined Braver Angels in this position, I've been the Utah ambassador for Common Sense American with the National Institute for Civil Discourse for a number of years. I've been volunteering with American Promise. It's trying to do constitutional amendment to change campaign finance and return power to the states. I've been working in the National Constitution Center. There are other players that are in different lanes. Disagree better. Governor Cox is not only my governor, but a friend and someone that I really trust. And so worked with him on Disagree Better for those years that he was, and when he started that. We as Braver Angels have something that's unique and powerful. And it starts with all of you and our people and our local alliances. And then we have methods and programs that we've just talked about. But there's other players that we can link together. And so I believe for us to make a bigger national play, it's both holding our elected officials accountable to the things that not specific issues, but to this Braver Angels way, and then also strategically engaging with other organizations to complement our work in synergy so that it can move forward faster. And if local alliances can become a civic hub, like a Braver Angels was a local alliance becomes a civic hub, then imagine how there's so many other things that you could participate in, some of which are Braver Angels, some are not.
Right. We talk about the local alliances. I know you've said this as a kind of platform,
As a
platform for the kind of
platform.
civic action that's going to move the needle on the stuff that we're all we need to get done. So thank you for that question. And I'll remind both Maury and everyone else. We want to try to get as many
Yep,
voices in
I'll
as
be
we can.
faster.
And that one, I mean, I gave you plenty of leeway because there was important stuff to get through, and not that the others
Okay.
won't also be important. But let's move to the next question. I need to shut up. Go
Next
ahead.
up is Paul Norris, and then after Paul, it will be Raven Odeon.
Yeah, so I've been with the organization a long time, as I think you know, Mari. One of the things I find myself thinking is more and more I wonder if depolarization is not actually what we should be shooting for, but actually classical nonviolence. And classical nonviolence, allows for incredible intensity. You can be intense, you can be angry, you can express what you're really feeling, but you hold the line at what is actual violence, and maybe that needs a little bit of redefinition, in terms of current days, like but about words being violent, et cetera, et cetera. But more and more I think about this, I think depolarization is not what we should actually be aiming for. I think it's one of the reasons we've had so much trouble attracting Reds for so long.
Yeah,
Maury,
Paul.
go ahead.
Yeah, Paul, my answer on that would be is that's why I think we're talking courageous citizenship. Depolarization is one little sliver of that you could do, but it's not enough. That's not, I mean, it's more than that. It's being able to actually lean into conflict with dignity instead of contempt so we can solve and build together. And one of those tools could be classical nonviolence if that's what's needed. But I still believe it falls under the umbrella of courageous citizenship of that's what we stand for.
Thank you, Maury. Next question. Let's go.
Raven, and then after that will be Alex.
Maury, great to meet you, and
Hey.
thanks. Loving your energy. Moni, quick question. You looked up the perception stats, the gap on some. Can you give me that resource?
I will not be able to do it this moment, but I will
Okay.
put it in the chat if I can, or in the email following this event.
Great. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, right?
Yes, and then after that will be Laura.
Hey, Alex.
Yep, thanks so much. So I've seen many Braver Angels debates over the years and given speeches in many of them. And it seems like in all of them, there's a common theme where we've put a lid on the boiling pot, but we haven't turned off the heat. People are still facing a decision that they have to make collectively. And it seems like a lot of the structures that we're working with for these events don't really allow people to find that actionable common ground. So I have been working with some tools that make that easier. How open are we to different structures of discussions that introduce key points and key questions that people can grab onto as a foundation for really getting that collective problem solving going?
Yeah, it's a great point, and especially with the point of debates, Alex. And I think the two thoughts that I have quickly. One is we need to think about the intention of our different methods. The way we do the magic of the Braver Angels debate approach is that we're actually not what we're doing there is we're revealing difference and then helping people recognize that they can still coexist with that difference and then starting to illuminate where there's common ground, but it doesn't go to common ground. In fact, there's a lot of people who come in a debate and they're like, well, wait a minute, who won or what did we solve? Like the utility of that particular tool is not to solve and get to common ground. But that's why what we're trying to do is to layer on top of that. And this is one thing, I was just with the president of UVU where the assassination of Charlie Kirk happened. She asked me to come down and we're going to be working on our debate program with CD&D, with Bridge USA and ACTA and Braver Angels, and do a series of debates, but have those debates followed up with common ground workshops so that you actually have engaged in a way that you've illuminated difference and then you're finding where there's common ground, but then you move into a different setting. But if you've got ideas as to how that could happen even within the debate thing, yeah, that's the power of a constellation mindset that Monica mentioned earlier, is that we want to have in what I would call in my world an innovation sandbox where there's lots of ideas that can come forward, and then we have criteria for how we elevate them once we know they work. But I think looking at the purpose and intent of each method matters.
So quick note, I found the research and it'll be dropped into the chat. It's from the Polarization Research Lab. Go ahead.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay, next up we have Laura, and then after that will be Rosemary.
Hi, thank you, Maury, so much for taking this on. I really appreciate that, what you're doing and your energy is great. I'm fairly new to Braver Angels by about 9 months, 8 months, something like that. And I'm very, very happy to be here, especially having been through COVID and having so much of my former ability to converse with people completely shut down. And so when I come in, I'm more of an independent leaning red, but to have so many liberals and people on the whatever other side, I don't even know if that's something I want to even say, willing to listen and just hear and be present is amazing. That's an amazing experience, and I look forward to it every single time. What I have found also is that if I think of the bigger picture too much, I can't think of it. I have to do my tiny little bit. I have 4 now blue or 5 friends I talk with every month that I met through Braver Angels. I'm so grateful for them. They are becoming great friends. That is the point, isn't it? That we become neighbors and friends, and we text each other, our videos, and she goes, what do you think of this? And one of my friends has the same spiritual path that I have, and we talk that language, in talking about that particular issue that we may not agree on. And it's so exciting. And I just can't tell you that I'm very optimistic, even though it's an overwhelming job. We can't fix it all, but we can just do our tiny little piece. I love one-on-one, and I kind of agree. The debates seem to me kind of like it's kind of like, here's my point of view, 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 and we don't actually ever get to necessarily common ground.
So sorry to rush you, but are you working toward a question? But Maury can also
sorry.
just address the wonderful optimism and behaviors you're modeling. Go ahead.
All right. And so why are Reds reluctant? I'd like to, because I'm trying to recruit red people to come, and hasn't worked so well. I don't understand why.
Well, that's a big topic and one that there's a lot of work on. And I tell you, I'm a red. It's funny, when I moved to Utah 5 years ago, I'm considered more purple. In any other state, I would be considered pretty red. But I think there's at least a couple of things. One is this movement in general, when you talk about connecting with people and talking and leaning into difference, those that are more blue and progressive mindset are more readily into that and feels more along like something that want to do. There's a tendency among those that are on from that I've heard from some who are red, who say, I need to see that I'm doing something more, like there's more action. But I think the deeper one is proving that they can be seen and heard. They can express a point of view, and they won't be looked at as you're an idiot or you're uneducated or if you just knew as much as me.
Well, that's interesting, because I did attend a workshop. My first workshop was with one of my red friends, right? And she was scared. She was in my living room and goes, if you were not here, I would not be on here.
Yeah.
All I see are liberals. And I'm like, no, come on, And that's actually my first workshop, is where I met one of my best friends from Braver Angels. So I hope that I can keep convincing people to come,
Maury, if I can follow up, thank you for teeing that up. That's wonderful. If I can follow up, what would you say to a person who leans red and holds that fear? And I think you've actually been in these conversations yourself several times. So what do you say to that person?
I say to that person, if not us, who? If not now, when? That lean in and come experience it. That's where you'll see it's different. And that's the part and I also feel like this citizen-led solution and the idea of moving from dialogue to action is a way to get more people, red and blue. But a lot of my friends who read of saying that, hey, listen, what we're actually trying to do is to solve some of these things, because I believe that the friendship and the connection is what matters at the human level. But then at the societal level, it's translating that into something.
Right.
Because we have systemic issues, folks, that if we don't change, we'll never be able to keep up with healing all the relationships. If we don't change the money in politics, you don't change the reality of the way we elect people and the way governance happens at the federal level, we're going to keep having this problem. So we have to move to change, but to do that, we've got to get past just talking.
All right. Next up.
Next up is Rose Marie, followed by Tim Earl Scherer.
Hi, and thank you. I'm brand new to Braver Angels, and my question is and Maury, you just revealed your red, and that was my question: is the leadership of Braver Angels diverse in its opinions, and is it perceived that way?
You're looking at a blue and red right now.
That's right. You're looking at a blue and a red.
But yeah, go ahead.
So we have a very disciplined at the leadership level requirement of having red and blue, and we look at things that way. It's intentional. I can tell you that the reputation of Braver Angels in this broader space is that we are one of the few, if not only, that actually attracts reds and has reds in this side. But I'll also say that we have to think about, and I've talked about this in other settings, we are thinking about how it's the next iteration of talking about red blue, because it needs to be more about your orientation of life experience of how you view the world as opposed to your political party. Because if you know the statistics, that it's really 23, 23, 48 right now, right? There's not a lot of people that are picking, there's less than half of the country is picking one of the two parties. Most are going in the middle. But ideology and life experience still orients, generally speaking, from a red and blue perspective. And we have to get better at how we talk about that, because a lot of people I've come across get turned off by the fact that they're like, well, I don't think I'm red or blue in terms of Republican, Democrat. So that's a tricky thing we gotta figure out on the next stage.
Next up is Tim, and then it will be Dave.
Okay, thank you. So, hey, Maury, you mentioned conversation and understanding, and that's really the key to it all, I believe. Right on track there. my question is similar to Laura Scotch, except with a twist. It's, I'm talking about uh, regular Democrats who are my brothers and sisters. Okay. And what I found interesting is just a total reluctance to engage. So I think that, it's like all I have to do is just say Charlie Kirk and it'll say stop. Don't go any further. So I don't know how I have to assume what they're thinking, I guess, because I'm not sure what they're thinking. But I told him, I says, I have the same sick gut feeling as when Martin Luther and RFK got shot. That's how I'm feeling. And, gosh, we all went through that together. You know, nothing, crickets. But anyway, I'm thinking that your other suggestion is conversing with blues would be better for me to do. And I've done that before a little bit.
And Tim, can
Usually.
you,
But
sorry to
anyway,
rush you,
that's
but
it.
yeah, go ahead and
That's where
finish
I'm
up.
at. That's where I'm
Yeah.
at.
So
Yes.
Maury, go ahead and respond.
Tim.
Basically all I have to say.
No,
Thank you.
thank you, Tim. And yeah, I would say find someone that thinks differently than you and have that conversation. But also, one of my favorite questions to use is tell me more about your life experience that shapes how you're seeing this issue. And you can use right now. Tell me about your life experience that shapes how you're experiencing what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah.
And do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that can really transform things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Dave, and then it will be Harrison.
Hey, Dave.
Right. Hi, thanks, guys. So my question is, I've been thinking about hyper local things that I could possibly implement in my area, but like with people in my neighborhood, and in particular, something where I could get a group of people together on a weekly basis and have a face-to-face conversation. And I was almost thinking, what if it were something kind of like a Toastmasters club, but with more of a focus on Braver Angels dialogue, where we could get not necessarily like the debates as they are set up right now, where it's an open community debate, but a committed group of people who wants to gather to just practice having Braver Angel style communication. My question is, is there anything in the works of anything like kind of a toolkit or anything like that for people like us to implement at the local level, or has that been discussed at all?
Absolutely. Yeah. Stay tuned on that. There's a lot that already exists, but it's being repackaged and put in a way that you can leverage at a local alliance to be able to pull together. There's even been discussion around, is there a Toastmasters type learning that we can do in connection with there? So absolutely. And in fact, if I could ask Mary Beth and Paige if we can put in the chat thread, there's two emails I want to toss out to you and for anyone who listens to this in the future. One is CEO Next Chapter at braverangels.org. So CEO Next Chapter at Braver Angels. That's for any of these ideas, any of these thoughts, send them. Those come to me. It's separate from my primary email because I'm having to manage email flow. So we got a separate one there. And then the second email to these points and stories is stories at braverangels.org. Stories at braverangels.org. And what that is, when you have real experiences like this and you do, like, let's say, I think it was Earl, when you go and you talk to that friend of yours and you have an experience, send those stories in. And we're collecting more and more of those stories because another way to impact and reach people is through the stories.
Yep. So I'm going to quickly interrupt and say that we have about 4 minutes left of questions. So go ahead. Next question.
Okay, a couple questions. We have Harrison and then Deborah.
Okay, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts here. One is you mentioned economic forces, and I think they're really deep economic forces that are benefiting from divisions.
Oh, yeah.
Because in a lot of ways, it's the advertising, the whole free information, you make money from advertising. You
Yeah.
got to then get as much attention as you can. Getting attention from human beings tends to be crazy stuff, right?
That's right. That's right.
We all respond to that. So, how does this relate to my question? My question is, I see that the long term for Braver Angels principles of really understanding each other is that's got to be the long-term course.
Mm-hmm.
But is it going to be fast enough?
Yeah.
And a question I have is, what about having all read?
Let's maybe just take whether it will be fast enough so we can just get a couple more folks before we're
Okay,
done. Sorry
okay,
about that. I know you
okay.
have a lot of questions. We have very limited time. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
But
my
drop
question.
drop me an email and let's talk some more, because I think fast enough is, yeah, it's going to take us working together, yes. But remember, it's not working together just to understand each other. It's working together because then that's how we can integrate solutions and ideas, and then progress. And in the process, my hope is, and my belief is that when you do that, we'll start voting differently. Gerrymandering only works because we buy into the system. We vote that way and we say party over anything else. So those kinds of changes will happen in ourselves. And like you said, in the social media world, we don't oftentimes realize we're the product, people. We're the
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
We're the thing that's being bought and sold in social media.
That's right.
Thank you, Deborah. You're next. And then we're going to check on the time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully you can hear me okay because I'm using the volume of the computer. I'm kind of center, leaning a little bit blue, but very, very centered, and have really a lot of concerns about freedom of speech and how that's been attacked from both sides. Right now, it's very far on the right. It was very strong on the left and very liberal left before, which I don't agree with either extreme. So I'm concerned, is there anything we can do or anything that you guys are doing as an organization to protect freedom of speech? Because I think that is the number one thing that will destroy the democracy if that's gone.
Okay, and Maury, I think we'll make this the last question, so go ahead.
I'd say, Deborah, that's exactly what we're doing with the Braver Angels Way, is that we're trying to demonstrate the dignified practice of free speech to be able to drive change, and recognizing that it starts with each of us making the choice to do that in our own lives. And then the next choice is the harder one, leaning into finding someone that has a different point of view and trying to understand their life experience that shapes their opinion so that their ideas can be merged with yours to find ways to strengthen the fabric of society. Because at the end of the day, the disconnection that we're experiencing is creating these outcomes, and all the incentives that we talked about here are driving us to that. And so thank you all. I could keep going all night, and email me on those emails and I will follow up as quickly as I can. But Monica, back to you.
All right. I got to just thank absolutely everyone. I see a lot of hands still raised. So Maury, I think it's safe to say you expect a lot of emails, right?
Yes.
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 Actually, we actually mean it. Please send your
And we'll
questions.
I'll set up calls with you too.
Yeah.
Rose helps me do that. And some of you know, I've talked with many of you already.
Yeah. So we're in this together. We got to talk to each other. We're all about that.
So
all right. Go. Yes,
before
Mary Beth.
anyone signs off, don't sign off just yet, please. We would love it if you would put in the chat, which is being opened right now, just making sure that it's open to everyone. Put something that you're taking away from this experience, please. And then also we have a very short feedback form that we would be grateful for you to please fill out.
It helps us so much. I know a lot of times at the end of these events, people want to like rush off to the next thing. This is a small action you can take right now. Help us out to understand where you all are. Oh, wow, Maury. So we're seeing already some beautiful things coming into chat.
Yes.
What's standing out to you?
Just the hope, and that we're not alone, that we're on a new chapter. Stronger and take action. Yes, that's the message. I'm glad that's what's coming through, and that we'll do this together.
Yeah.
We will send out a follow-up email later next week, and all the links that we've mentioned today we'll capture and share in that email, as well as a link to the recording of this.
And as everyone fills out the survey and drops your thoughts, I want to just highlight John, who said, I am not alone. That's a takeaway from this. And I really want to stress that. Right, Maury? We can't do this alone. And it can feel
Yeah.
isolating, but it's not true. You know, we share this.
And I guess one thing that I'm feeling right now, seeing all this, go find another person you know and get them involved.
Yeah.
If you know people who are of means and have the ability to donate to be able to help with the expansion of what we're doing, reach out to them. This is something that, for me personally, outside of my faith and family, I can't imagine anything more important. And I believe that you wouldn't be doing this yourselves if you didn't feel the same way.
That's right. It's already an action just being here. Even those of you who, like I sometimes do, I sometimes hope feels a little bit scant. But then I come back together into these spaces with everybody and it's right back. So this is how we fuel each other up. So welcome.
So you've got about 2 more minutes to add your takeaway into the chat and to grab the link for the feedback form. And then at that point, we're gonna turn off the Zoom. But before that, I want to also just give a really heartfelt thanks to Monica and Maury for being with us today and for the inspiration and leadership that you're giving to all the rest of us.
Well, I want to thank you, Adam and Paige, and all those in the background that have been making
Yes.
this all come together so much. And thank you to each of you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you know and can sense that this is not some performance I'm putting on. This is just who I am. And I appreciate each of you bringing who you are to the table on all this. And I guess the last thing I would ask people is go give somebody a hug. Um, I need to go get a hug from my wife or one of my kids.
Same. And there's my dog is over there by the door too, looking very cuddly. All right.
I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.